what, you've been here before then?
Yeah, about maybe 30 years, 10 years, 20 years ago maybe.
Well, it's very different then, isn't it?
Oh, aye, definitely, definitely.
Yeah. So you know all about why we're here?
Yes, it's the old steam engines and stuff, build them up, refurnish them again and all that there, I think.
Yeah, but you know why? You know why this goes a bit further back than that. This railway started with the Belfast Northern Counties Railway,
right,
like 120 years ago, or more, right in the 19th century, and it ran from Port to Portrush and Derry. There were so many people came to Whitehead at the start of the 20th century that they couldn't cope with the number of people up there. So and that was because the guy who was, we'll walk up, the guy who was the charge of the railway also built up the town.
Right.
People who built big houses, got concessions on the train to Belfast for so many years. And he put in a bandstand and a promenade and developed the town.
Yep.
So people came in their thousands. So it's the extent that they couldn't cope up there. So they had to build this extra station. So this is called the Whitehead Excursion Station. It was opened in 1907. And that brick water tower up there, the engine shed, that's all there was in 1907, just so they could service the engines before they sent them back to Belfast. And that only lasted for how long?
Probably 15 years, 10 years.
7 years.
Yep.
Because in 1914, what happened?
The war, wasn't it?
First World War. So that all stopped. There was no tourism then.
Yep.
So this place virtually lay empty until the Railway Preservation Society, us, was formed in 1964 and came here in 1966. And that's all they had. Everything's been built up since.
Yep.
So that's why we're here.
Yep.
So you've got this platform here with one row, and then there used to be one on that side as well. And even a turntable in the
so this would be Order and Carrick Station?
No, I don't think so.
Don't think so, no.
I'd have to check that.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm not sure how I would check it, but I don't think it is.
No.
I was just looking to see they were doing some work there during the week. But they're putting in new sleepers. See, the ground's been a bit messed up there. Right, let's open up the signal box. You're seriously into photography, are you?
Well, a bit photography and then just put on YouTube and stuff.
Nice, come on. That's only
the alarm?
No, it's not. No. Those are the bells. That's the way the signal boxes communicated with each other. Right. A system of bells, so they had to listen to what the things were, to tell them whether it was an express train or an empty engine or whatever it was coming down. So that was just it's triggered by coming in the door. But basically, there's a train going to Larne now. Basically, this signal box is a one that would be typical of the Belfast Northern Counties Railway. With the big windows, the roof. The roof goes out a long way so that the sun doesn't shine directly in the eyes of the signalman.
Right.
And then we have this lever frame. This frame actually came from Tobercurry in County Sligo. Some of the levers have been connected up, even just this week. So we'll start with number 12. You can do this if you want to. That signal that I just opened, if you want to move over towards the window, so you'll see that. See that?
Yeah, go down. Yep.
That came from Castle Rock. I was put in here in 2018, 25 years ago. And because our site, as you know, stops at the bridge. Yeah.
Then you just get permission to go forward, go on.
We need to get permission to go onto the main line, but also we need to have Northern Ireland Railway's crew. Transport have to provide the crew because they know where all the signals are and all the speed restrictions and whatever. They know the road, so we can only go there with NIR staff. Our guys can run the trains up and down here all day if they want, but we can't get onto the main line without staff from NIR, which is a problem at the moment. So that signal came from up at Castle Rock. In 2016 they opened a new loop at the Ballerina. They increased the number of trains going to and from Derry, and they didn't need the signal anymore. They put in colour lights, so we got the signal here, and it's all been wired up to this one here.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to change the points, as it were, underneath the bridge, to change it from one track to the other, then you have to use this lever here. But that won't work because I've got the signal set for tracks.
So the red ones for signals and the blue ones for points? No.
Roughly that,
Roughly,
yes.
yeah.
Yes. This is only for demo because the points are not, none of the points are connected up.
Yeah.
And what I've just done here, it's been interlocked underneath, so you couldn't in fact move that point because it's set for the traffic to leave. So if I turn the stop signal up so that the track will go, now I can change the points. And then I can actually change the other signals near the other end of the platform because they've got clearance now to go onto the loop. Now you can see that's gone down. So and this one is it's locked because we can't do that. So now that will move. And you can see that moves there. That's an indicator that the signal has moved. And the same way with number one. That's for if the signal was out of the sight, so the signalman couldn't see it. Say it was around a corner. He'd like to know had it moved. So this indicator would tell him.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's one thing. But we're not going to wire up all the points because it's too complicated here. So yeah, that's what's happening in these levers now. So we'll.
And you're all volunteers, like these? Most.
Well, about 5 staff are paid to come in during the week, Monday to Friday. But the rest of it's all volunteers.
Volunteers, aye.
And certainly the weekend it's all volunteers.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just part of the opening up.
So how old would they be? They'd be old, wouldn't they?
That would be 1930s, I'm guessing. That's 2374. It's they see the sign on the side of it, like a snail.
Snail, yeah.
That's the CIE. That's the Irish Railway Network sign at that time. But that's a guards van.
Yeah, right.
And you can
that's
see
for just taking people up the each platform. No.
No, it's to take the little window at the side of it.
Yeah.
This is for the guard. So the guards, excuse me, it's cold. The guard would be at the back of the train. Would be at the back of the train, and so that when they're going down a hill, the train's going down a hill. If it's only got an engine at the front, somebody has to help with the braking. So the guard has to know when he's going up and down hills, and know when to put the brake on, and when to take the brake off. So that's a brake van, actually. The only person in there would be the guard. There wouldn't be any. No, you wouldn't take passengers.
No. But
I can look. Back later on. I can look it up when it was made, 1930, I think. The track here is 5 foot. The rails are 5'3" apart, like the whole of Ireland. In England, it's 4'8 1/2". So all the engines we have are built in England, except one. They're all built in England, and they're obviously made to fit our rails.
Rails.
So
then that's the point surf and manuals, and
those are manual. That's how you would close the blades in that one. And those are actually quite heavy. They're spring loaded because you always have to pull them the one way, but it depends which way they were before. So you've got that's actually set for the loop. So and yet this one is going to go across this way here, so that you can change it. Then there are points. There's a handle up there, on the ground. You can see it, which works the point here at the end of this platform.
Ah, yes.
And then there's one further up where the this other third loop goes in there. There's a, you can't see it from here, but there's a, I promise you there's a control up there. This coach here was used on the Dublin to Belfast Enterprise Express service.
Hello. I just realised I'm here a week early. I'm supposed to be here next Saturday.
Well, madam, D-Day isn't next week.
Right. I just realised. But sure, I know where to come next week.
Where have you come from?
From West Belfast. Doesn't matter.
I done the same thing. I done the same thing.
Museum?
I done the same thing. I said to myself, I might as well stay.
You're looking for next year?
I was going for next week as well, so we're coming next week. Coming again.
You want to go in for a coffee?
Where's that?
Just at the end of the building then.
I will.
Just walk up there, and then it's the other end of the building.
Brilliant, that's great.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
This is not the original engine shed. That's I'm going to show you that in a moment. But this was built on some years after, so they had to have somewhere where they could work on the engines undercover. You couldn't do it all outside.
No.
But 186 was the oldest locomotive. It was built in 1879. When it says Portrush Flyer on the top, that's not the name of the engine. That's to do with the trip. That plate would go on the front of any engine that was going to Portrush on a trip. It was retired in 2014. Main reason being it's too slow. The Northern Ireland Railway didn't want engines that can only do 45 miles an hour, blocking up the tracks. Most of a lot of the Northern Ireland network is on single track, particularly north of Antrim. So you have to have problems then of how do you get trains meeting each other and passing. So this was getting in the way. So it's been retired. It was used laterally by us for Santa train rides and Christmas bunny and Easter bunny and things like that. But it was also used in the past all over Ireland. There were 119 of these built, and there are only 2 in preservation. This one and 184 to cross here. It's slightly different. You can see the different funnel, for example. The boiler is slightly different inside, but this one's being painted up to for display purposes. It'll never run again.
No.
There are no plans for it to run. But somebody comes in here every week and does a bit of work on it to get it all cleaned up. This engine is famous, if that's the word, because it was used in the making of a film, the first great train robbery. Yeah. Have you ever seen that film?
Yeah.
Well, this film, although the robbery was in 1855 between London and Folkestone. And when they were trying to steal gold, it was heading for Crimea. In fact, it was filmed in Ireland, and that was the locomotive. We used our locomotive here for the main engine bits. And there are some photographs there of the engine. They did some cosmetic work on the cab to make it look more authentic for the date. Yeah. And then that's Sean Connery on the roof of the train, apparently. So 184, that was built, it's a year younger, that one was actually built in Dublin. I think it's the only one we've got that was not built in England, 184. So that's its claim to fame. But a workhorse engine, usually used for lower speed work, but it was, they were very useful. The engine beyond that, you see the back of it there, that was built for the Sligo and Leitrim, maybe that's number 27, Lochern. And it was built in 1949 and retired in 63. So it needs a lot of cosmetic work, but presumably it'll never run again either. But this big diesel, 142, we will use that again here on site for shunting and things like that. So just come through this way here.
Anytime you want to
This is a bit of video about firing up a big locomotive. 131. It's actually in Dublin at the moment, but it takes 8 hours to warm up an engine for a big one. If you do it too quickly, it'll expand too fast and it'll split the pipes, and it'll be all sort of difficult. But they take 8 hours. The small engines, they 2.5 hours will get the pressure up enough.
There's more than one way to light a fire. What I tend to do is to spread a small amount of coal over the fire bars.
So that's a demonstration of 131. It's an engine which was built in Glasgow around about 1900, but it came to us about 20 years ago
you try to arrange the larger pieces
in an awful state, and most of it was missing. But it had the wheels and the frames, and it was then eventually all the bits were put onto it. So it took passengers for the first time in Easter 2018, for the first time for well over 50 years. Passengers. So we're into preservation. That's what our name says. Now this is the original 1907 engine shed. You can see the state of the floor and also the smoke on the brick on the walls. This is a guards van as well, which have been used. It's been refurbished completely by the youth squad about 15 years ago. That is the tender for 171. Now I'll take you upstairs. There are gallery windows, so you can see those better from upstairs.
So I think it's a bit different pressure you have to get up to before it goes.
Yeah, 160 psi. Okay, let's go upstairs. So the museum was only opened in 2017.
Yep.
It's only going it'll be 6 years. 6 years this month. Come around this way. There you can get a better view now of the engines and the shed. See the buggy in front then, and you've got the what it looks like from higher up. So occasionally those things are moved around, like it's required. Now come around this way here. So there's the guards van. Again, the guards van was important because that's where you apply braking. If the engines were, particularly going downhill at the end, the guard had to assist. Otherwise, all the load of braking was on the engine.
So where would you get your coal from?
Well, it used to be Russian coal, and they're not allowed to use that now for the last couple of years. So it comes from Poland. But the big engines will use. You'll get 40 miles from a ton of coal. So if you go to Dublin, say just over 100 miles, it's a lot of shoveling. And they use 40 gallons of water for every mile. So yeah, some of the tanks will have 3,500 or 4,000 gallons in their tank. So this is 171's tender. It's in the workshops at the moment. It's nearly finished. It's refurb, and then that's its boiler right beyond the other end, and that will in due course be lifted out on the heavy lift and put onto the frames. 171. That'll be its next stage of its refurb. They're hoping to have it running by the end of the year. Now this model was built about 1930 in Dundalk for the education of the people who were working there. It's a model called 202, and it's 1/8 scale. And it shows basically what is involved inside a steam engine. The tender at the back has got mostly water. People think it's full of coal. It's not. It's a bit of coal on the top, and most of it the water underneath. And the water then is pumped through injectors. It's injected into the boiler. It has to be injected because it's under pressure. You can't drop the pressure on the boiler, otherwise it won't work. Blow up. So you've got your firebox there, and then the gases and the smoke all head out through these tubes up the chimney, but as they go, they heat up these other pipes, got water in them. So the water, they heat up and the steam rises up to the top, to the dome. there's a regulator, like an accelerator that the engine driver can use to regulate how much steam he wants to go through, and it's pumped down into the cylinders, which are here, which then go backwards and forwards, and that's how the motion comes.
Yeah.
I always admire the way in which these little models on the engine on the front plate there, how small they were. Somebody must have sat down there with a lathe and a milling machine and done all sorts of very fine work with files and things to get those little models built. I think it's brilliant.
Take that one, I call it. The one in the middle of the handle, so that's for the
regulator. It's a big one. It's called the regulator.
Regulator.
Yeah, it's like an accelerator. Move it certain ways and get more and more. But you can just get a good view of it. It's really fantastic. This model sat for some years in Amiens Street in Dublin. It's now Connolly, and then it was in Great Victoria Street. And in 1972, one of the times the Europa Hotel was bombed, the station was badly damaged, and this model was damaged. And it's had other damage since, and now it's been restored up enough to be able to put on display.
Right, yeah.
So we'll go around this way here now. So are you recording all along here?
More or less. And then I cut off, but I want to cut it out.
Right. Well, I have to ask you. I'm asking you not to put that on social media.
No.
We don't want that broadcast. Or it's just we want people to come and see the place for themselves.
Right.
Not what's going on here.
Yeah.
There are other legal issues. So I'm asking you.
Yeah.
And you're recording that, not to put this on, spread it on the internet.
Right.
So this, when I came here first to volunteer years ago, this was all out in the open air. This bit's all been built in around about, I suppose 8 or 9 years ago now. And that's the main workshop through there, and I can hear them moving the main big crane. These are bogies that come up from Dublin to be refurbished. They obviously need the springs and the brakes and everything cleaned up. So when there's time, we need more volunteers to come and actually do things.
Yeah.
This engine is number 4. Doesn't have a name. It was built in 1947 for the Ulster Transport Authority, and it was the last locomotive to pull passengers on a timetable service. In England, they stopped in 1968, and this train, this engine brought the last train in Northern Ireland from Belfast to Whitehead on Easter Tuesday, 1970. Yeah. Now, it was also, before it was retired out at that time, it was used as part of the filling in of the M2 and the M5 motorways. Were built by filling in Belfast Lough in the late 60s, between 66 and 70. And this engine was used to help bring stones from Macharamorn up towards Larne. They brought 7,600 trainloads of stone to fill in the room. So this engine was used for it. And but it's a tank locomotive, as you can see. The tank isn't in a tender. It's got tanks on the side. There's a coal bunker at the back. So this is a tender engine, a tank locomotive that would run. It could run the same speed going forwards and going backwards. And it's got outside cylinders there. With a magnet. It was a very efficient engine, and the drivers liked it. It was a popular engine to be used, and of course it was versatile because you didn't have to turn it everywhere with the turntable. But yes, they started to take it apart, but it actually is going to need a full overhaul. The boiler certificates only last 10 years, so you have to. You have the timetable on, so you get them out of the service and into the workshops, or sitting waiting in the queue to get a new boiler certificate in them. The boiler certs somebody comes from England to check them, to make sure that from a safety point of view everything's proper and in order. But the trouble was that during COVID we didn't do anything for about 2.5 years, and the boiler certificates were still ticking up, using up their 10 years, and we didn't get any use out of them. at the workshop, taken some years ago. That's the tender of 131. But you can see the overhead crane, which runs in those girders. That came from the depot over at Queen's Quay on the other side of the lagoon near what's now the SSE Arena.
Yeah.
So this is our main workshop. They're moving some heavy stuff down there, using a different crane on the same girders. But Brian's we're already working here this morning on he uses this machine every week. I'm here, he's there. These two green plates are for a locomotive that's being built. I'm not going to say from scratch, but almost. We're using some other bits we've accumulated from various places, and the rest of it's being built up. Ultimately, it's going to be what we call a mogul. It was all the ones that were built years ago were scrapped when they weren't required. They're none kept in conservation, so we're making one, so we'll have one.
Is there special welding?
Yeah, some of the plates were cast in Scotland, across the water. We had to, but they special welding and it's a whole thing. But they do their own welding and stuff here.
Yeah.
And so obviously inside a firebox you have to do it. This is one of the original members of the society from nearly 60 years ago. Right, we'll go through the foundry briefly, and then we'll work the hire shed. So this is our foundry. We've got the furnace over there. We've got a cover on, and we've got our sand, our molds, all the bits and pieces you need for doing casting. I'd have to say we don't actually do a lot here. We get some done elsewhere. It's quicker and to get it all done.
Yeah.
And again, we need more
volunteers type
more
thing.
volunteers to actually come in and work here. That's the 186 heading up out of Hollywood, going towards Bangor. So say that won't happen again, unfortunately. Now they've changed this video. This used to be about the foundries and moulding. They've put different things in it. Right, come this way, sir. These are carriage plates, which have just been put on display very recently. You can see all the different sorts of coach.
Like first class and second class?
First and second class, made by GNR or by the LMS-NCC. So they're different people who bought them, built them. So these are some of the plates, some of the taxonomies to identify them. But again, their weights were important because obviously you had to, an engine could only pull a certain weight. So you'd have to accumulate that, and that would be at empty. These is a map of Ireland. You can see the green. If you look at it from back here, you can see it. And they've got these plates that they've found, public information plates, like warning about opening gates and getting fined for doing trespassing and whatever. So these are all original, and they've just been put on display this year. So the museum is still acquiring stuff and using it.
Then you get stuff donated and stuff.
Yeah, but most of the stuff would, well, yes, it would be, because some of this would, you have to buy this. Collectors would already have this.
Yeah.
So, and then these are mileposts.
Yeah.
They have indicators on the side of a track.
Yeah.
We have mileposts, then they've got quarters, halves and three quarters.
Is that before you go into the station?
No, all the whole way up the line.
All the way, right.
Yeah. So you could work out how far you'd come. I mean, if you the miles are counted from Dublin. So if you go to Helens Bay, you'll see it says 121 3/4. Well, they actually got 121 and 3 big dots. Equivalent of that. Yeah. So that yeah, those are just on display just recently. And then this is to do with the boundary of where the one railway was used. And then you've got the sign. You won't use that. You won't see that sign again. So it's Queen's Quay rail station's long since disappeared.
Yep.
Oh, more cars than there were here from last time I was done. More volunteers at work.
So next month, next week, whatever you call it, the thing coming on. What's all? So it's about the army thing, isn't it?
It's to do with Second World War, and they're going to have dancing and bands, and I think they're going to be people in uniform.
Would it be okay to put that on media, social media?
I'm not sure. Well, you probably would be. You'd have to
See,
you'd have to ask when you come.
Yeah.
I know we're quite touchy about it.
Yeah.
This used to be. This is our site, but this was cleared out about 10 years ago. Over the last 10 years, really, it's been paved a bit, but previously it was a bit wild here. This bit from the right here, from this gate, that way back is all new in the last 10 years. The carriage shed, and then we'll show you inside. We've got 3 rails here because we do some work for the County Donegal Railway, which runs on a 3-foot gauge, not 5'3". So if you bring a locomotive out on their gauge, you can wheel it out appropriately to the right track. I lead the way. People working in here, volunteers working. Morning, guys. Lots of volunteers have to do. Lots of wire brushing.
Yep.
This locomotive coach was built in 1906. It's got 12 wheels on it, 2 6-wheel bogies. It had first, second, and third compartments. And then on the roof, you see a different sort of boxy, the extra bit. That's called clerestory, and that was an arrangement to get more light into the compartments. It's a Carter coach, but they need more light in it.
I thought it was for luggage or something, put luggage to make sure the luggage didn't fall off.
No. It's getting more light in.
Yeah.
This is our main woodworking shop. And at the far end we've got a paint shop as well with temperature control. So these two guys are here every weekend. Children, we have children from school parties, so they are to dress up to get their photographs taken.
Yeah.
This is a petrol wagon. Shell would have used this to take fuel around the country. The oil companies had their own, and there were options, but now of course it all goes by road.
Yeah.
This locomotive was used by the London Dairy Port and Harbour Commissioners for shunting wagons on the quayside in Derry when it was an active port. Now that closed in the 60s. And so this engine wasn't required. It was brought by an enthusiast and given, or we sold to us. The man died now. 2 years ago, his widow was in here with her grandchildren to show the family the grandest engine. So yeah, it's just we're painting up. I think the plan is to get it. To get us tubed on a shunter on site here, but at the moment it's just been painted up to make it look more presentable.
Yeah.
We'll come around this way. This is. It doesn't have a. It's a tank engine, not a tender. So the water the cold water goes in a tank on the top of the boiler, and that we call that a saddle tank. You see why? And then it's been painted up. This coupling would have been used for connecting up to wagons. It was shunted, but if it was on Derry when they had narrow gauge wagons as well, because things going to County Donegal, so they would have another coupling. It's sitting over there. We can't stick it out here; it would trip over.
Yeah. So is that would get the cold out that way?
No, that's the smoke box.
Oh right.
You open that up every so often because all the dust on the residue of the smoke. No,
All right.
there's a lot of stuff that has to be shoveled out.
Double pick, yeah, that's what I
You
meant.
know, you put the coal in at the other end.
Yeah, yeah, I know that, yeah.
It does work. That's supposed to work. It's supposed to somebody to mind the gap on the train. That's the kit for the front and the other thing. The footplate, there's not much room to work in there, particularly if it's all hot, as it would be. So it doesn't have a big coal bunker because it didn't go very far. It only went up and down, and therefore, but it had to be high enough to keep it going. But it didn't go very far, so you could always stop and get more coal as well. This locomotive is 461. It was bought for Dublin and South Eastern Railway, and it was used on the trips really from Dublin down towards Wexford and Rosslare, that sort of area in particular. But it, you get a good view of the mechanism here. You can see all the two cylinders in there, where the corners of the front, and then that would the movement there would turn into motion, so the wheels to go around. Yeah. This engine was built in 1922, and it couldn't be delivered to Dublin. At that time, was brought to Adelaide and sat outside Belfast because there was a civil war in Dublin, and I had to wait till the war was. They sorted themselves out down there. So if you want to, you can actually climb up on the footplate here. We made some steps. It's all been freshened up and labelled as well. This engine needs a full overhaul before it can be used again. You can see there where the fire is. Yeah. And it's a long way down into that. So we want to change the fire bars on the bottom of that. Somebody needs to climb through that hole. There's no other way getting in. So the coal gets shoveled from there, and then goes in there. And then there's the gauges that tell you whether you've got enough water in the boiler, or what the pressure is. And then you've got a speedometer as well.
Do they all have like a serial number when they're made?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yes, it's all
documented.
It's very well documented.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the tender. So that the water goes in the top. You can't see it. There's a lid there. You lift up and then you put the hose in there to get the water in. So that's mostly, it's coal there as well, but it's mostly water.
Right, I never knew that.
Yeah. This is a dining car which is used between Belfast and Derry. LMS stands for London, Midland, Scottish, and then NCC, Northern Counties Committee at the other end. So you're welcome to walk through this and have a look at it and then come out the other end.
Yep.
You're in behind the bar, but then you can follow it through. That's it, the other end. Alright?
Right.
This coach was used between a commuter service between Portrush and Belfast in the 1930s. It left Portrush every morning and came back, went back from Belfast at 5:30 every night. But this coach is the last survivor of the set that were used in the 1930s. So we use that on, it's like, it's just a typical corridor coach, but it was, which has been used on here for shunting or train rides and things like that on site. Coaches that have got wooden bodies, we haven't been able to use those on the main line since 2003 from a safety point of view. Now this wagon here on the left is called a grain wagon. It's come from the Guinness Brewery. And come and see. Mind your head. So this would have been used for taking the stout up to from the brewery up to the main railhead and then out around the country.
Okay.
And it was also used at one time as a grain van, so that they were collecting grain from the farms and they were bringing it in here in big hoppers and it was loaded through the ceiling. See this?
Yep.
There were 3 hoppers, you could put 3 beds, you could put the grain in and then it was taken out through these chutes on the floor. You see here there's a guy raking it out through the into another wagon. So these are just some photographs of the process, from the farming to the thrashing, and then around the. This, for example, is the Guinness. In fact, you can see all the wagons, and that's all. That's not used now, like so it's. But it was a very busy outfit until the 1960s. And then these are 4 wagons loading the beer in the barrels, and these are barrel rollers, which you would hook on like that there, and then you could roll the barrels.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. This machine was refurbished a few years ago. It was in an awful state, and it's had its woodwork replaced completely. The metal was taken right down to the frames, and it's we got 2nd prize in a competition for restoration. For a 2nd prize. And this is a photograph of one of our wagons. This is our coach 547, which was used. This is obviously pre-COVID. You couldn't get any more people in that one. So that they're queuing up in the bar there. It's the only place you can draft Guinness on a train. Yeah. Now mind your head, sir.
Yep.
Now this coach, number 50, is the director's saloon of the Great Northern Railway. It has a lobby at each end, so if you put this on the end of a train, you could sit in there and see where the countryside goes past you. Its claim to fame is that it was used by Her Majesty the Queen in 1953 when she went from Lisburn to Lisahally, which is the port, the naval base in Derry. And she went up, she did that it was part of her coronation tour, just after she'd been crowned.
Yeah, because I think she kept the characters, she did.
She was in Northern Ireland for 3 days.
Yeah.
So we can go in and have a look. Oh, you go ahead, through there. This would have been where the directors would have had their meetings on the train. They could nicely panel. The coach was built in 1911. The carpet's done things original, but this would have been used as their
office.
But then if you go through there, you can see sort of the sort of lounge area where they would sit and they were just relaxing. This is we set this display up last year for her jubilee, and then but I know the carpet was only changed earlier this year. It wasn't the original, but this is a small television of 1950s, and that's just some newsreel film that they salvaged of taken from the train during her visit. It's interesting to see that, not just black and white, but how close people are allowed to get to the railway. And big fences and all sorts of things. Yeah, so this was the director's saloon, but it's used by Her Majesty.
Yeah.
So. Turn it off for a second. It's off. Yeah. I want to see this was the President's Saloon from Ireland. That's why it's in Irish Rail colours.
Yeah.
This was built originally in 1972 as a restaurant car, and then it was converted into use by the presidents. So it obviously hasn't been used for a while.
Yeah.
The presidents go to a helicopter now, I suppose. Or limousine. But it was similar sort of system. They had a conference table, they had a lounge area, some little offices for quiet meetings if the president wanted to talk to somebody. There was a gallery in it for a cook would make some snacks for them. So that's just on permanent loan to us from CIU. This is just a typical goods van. I mean, you've got your luggage, your bikes, your pigeon baskets, your milk churns, all those sort of things that went by train. Nowadays it all goes by road, if it goes anywhere.
Yep.
And this is a ballast wagon. The ballast is the name for the stones underneath the rails. And you have to change them. They get compressed with all the use. So you have to change them so often. That's a ballast wagon. And so you would put that, you could open the stones, let the stones drop through between the rails. Now something else I want to show you before we go. There was an accident in 1889 when an excursion train from Armagh going down to the coast was it stalled. It was overloaded, and it stalled going up a hill. And the problem was that they were up the hill. They disconnected the train engine and some of the coaches and said, we'll come back for these ones, and left them sitting there. But they didn't block them properly, so they ran back down the track and crashed into the engine behind. So you can see here, there must have been some force for these wagons coming down here and knocking this. Look at the bits and pieces here. Coaches. So there were 88 people killed. It's known as the Armagh accident, and it's in the history books for people involved in railway history. They all know about it. Two good things came out of that. First of all, every coach that had passengers in it had to have its own braking system, so that if something went wrong, the brakes would come on. Previously, it was only on the engine on the guards van. So
So could anybody operate the braking thing, like passengers on?
If they press, they pull the chain and would put the brakes on. That's how that works. If you pull out, it actually releases the vacuum, so the brakes come on. So that was then became standard. They had to have everything. Every passenger vehicle had to have its own braking system, and also they split the track up into sections. Previously, they ran on the time interval basis. What I thought, they ran on the time interval. How are you, sir?
Not too bad, yourself?
Good. No, keep on going. So we're the gap was about, well, the last guy went 10 minutes, so you can follow them. So they stopped that, and they had systems, and you can only get into a section now if you know it's clear. So that's more or less it.
Yep.